はい
はい。
はい。うん。
同人。聽講你北上登台變成生活日常，忙到連執篋時間都冇喎。
大家咁話啦，其實執篋好嘥時間 ，Smart Travel 係應該。
What's up, y'all? Check out this really fast fingering for the whole tone scale. We got this going on. All right, let's learn how to play a whole tone scale. So a whole tone scale is basically when you start a note and just follow a pattern of only whole steps. So if you start on C, first whole step would be D, next whole step would be E, next whole step would be F sharp, then G sharp, then A sharp, and then back to C. All right, so C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C. So
very simply, the whole tone scale is a scale made of only
It's just if you start on C and you go up a whole tone, whole step, 2 frets, go up another 2 frets, another 2 frets, another whole step.
Switzerland's roads are made with special permeable concrete. This surface has tiny holes that let rainwater pass straight through, soaking into the ground below. No puddles, no delay, just smart engineering. Switzerland's roads are made with special permeable concrete. This surface has tiny holes that let rainwater pass straight through, soaking into the ground below. No puddles, no delay, just smart engineering. Switzerland's roads are made with special permeable concrete. This surface has tiny...
How to get infinity room.
Guys, how do you call me in your languages? I call you very similar to yourself. I say España, Español, España, 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 Español, España, España.
Chinese, also Spain. The same Chinese.
Wow.
Who the hell unleashed Labubu on the internet? Like I blinked and suddenly every kid under... You scroll through shorts and it's just...
Edits, Labubu merch hauls, Labubu shrines.
Like, bro, what? This ain't cute anymore. It's a full-on cult.
I saw a kid scream...
Labubu is watching and run into a wall.
What the actual hell is happening?
You miss one trend and suddenly
You're the weirdo who isn't interested in Labubus.
Who the hell unleashed Labubu?
The Boo-Boos. That is 2,470 quest subscribers. Geek. Geek. Week. Geek. Tick. Geek. BB 話咪有病啊！黐鳩線。
Doing there, as there's nothing quite as scary as a baby being born that isn't crying. The glaring issue here is that the infant isn't breathing, meaning we have to do something to help the drive to breathe, which is controlled by the medulla oblongata. There are lots of different things that control the drive to breathe, including cutaneous.
Come on, sweetheart. How to get free Robux in...
use area of DRC, the GDP of United States, population of Denmark, which is making it richer, military Turkey, looks will be Seychelles. I will try to join Kenobi as a friend. Okay. Kenobi is in the friend connection. Pushing my friendship even further in game.
is what I would consider to be the best country of all time. Both the alcoholic beverages or the drinks, I'm going to go with Germany here. I mean, Oktoberfest is in Germany. They have beers that are really cheap. And Germany is just known for drinking. Then for the culture, we're going to go for Italy. I think the Italian culture is top tier. And then for the humour, there's only really one country for this one because we are the funniest country in the world. It's going to the UK. And I wouldn't even say it's close. I think the only close one to us would be Australia. Now moving on to the military strength, there is literally only one country on the planet you can pick, and it's the United States of America. They've got the most nukes, they've got the most powerful military. It's an easy pick. But for the special forces, we're going to go for the UK. I mean, the SAS is by far the best special forces in the world. Moving on to food, we are going to pick Mexico. I think the Mexican cuisine is top tier. I do not think there is a better cuisine on the planet. It's going into the food category. And then for the weather, we are going to go for Australia. I think Australia just have a good mix of everything. And in their summer is so warm. And last but not least, for the economy, we're going to pick the United States of America.
Dear summers are winter in the southern hemisphere.
This video is sponsored by the music transcription app Transcribe Plus. This video is sponsored by the music transcription app Transcribe Plus. Mixolydian Flat 6 is a scale that does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a Mixolydian scale, but the 6th degree, the 6th note in the scale, has been flattened. This bright yet dark, intriguing
Mixolydian
Flat 6 scale, a good choice for film and TV scoring. For example, Ramin Djawadi used the B Mixolydian Flat 6 scale for the Valar Morghulis theme in Game of Thrones, the music associated with the mysterious Faceless Men. In this theme, the music literally starts by climbing up the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale, immediately setting us into that bright yet dark tonality. This Mixolydian Flat 6 sound illustrates the Faceless Men perfectly, as these are characters who ride the line between good and bad, between light and dark, just like the scale does. A lot of songs that use the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale do so via what I would call the Mixolydian Flat 6 vamp, the chord progression of 1, the tonic chord, moving to the minor version of the 4th chord. In the key of C major, this would be the chord progression C to F minor. Between just these two chords, we get 6 out of 7 of the notes of the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale. And most importantly, we get the major third alongside the flat 6, which are the two main character notes of the scale. incredibly exotic, dark yet light sound. That is the sound of Mixolydian Flat 6. Blend. Both the bright major third with the dark minor sixth. The Fragile by Nine Inch Nails uses the G Mixolydian Flat 6 scale. Remember that the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale is just like a major scale, but with a lowered 6th and lowered 7th. We can see the lowered 6th, the E flat in this case, here in the vocal melody, and the lowered 7th, the F natural, is here in the bass line. The verse section of Twilight by ELO is in C Mixolydian Flat 6. What's interesting about this example is that the vocal melody only uses the first 5 notes of the scale, and because the first 5 notes of the major scale and the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale are identical, it means that the vocal melody is effectively just using the major scale, and it's in fact here the chord progression underneath that melody that introduces the Flat 6 and Flat 7, which paint us into that Mixolydian Flat 6 sound. Because all of the Mixolydian Flat 6-ness of this song is coming from the chords, not the melody, if we took this same melody and played it over a major scale chord progression instead, we would completely lose that Mixolydian Flat 6 sound. A similar use of the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale is Single Ladies by Beyonce. Just like we saw in Twilight by ELO, in Single Ladies, the main vocal melody is just sticking to the first 5 notes of the major scale. It is then the other elements of this song, the other elements of the arrangement, that introduce the other degrees of the scale, the Flat 6 and the Flat 7, which pull us into that Mixolydian Flat 6 sound. In this example, the Flat 6 degree, the C natural, is introduced by the bass line here, and the Flat 7, the D natural, is present in this flute sample. With Transcribe Plus, you can easily and smoothly loop, pitch shift, or adjust the tempo of any song on your phone or any song on Apple Music. This makes the app a great tool for learning and transcribing songs. For example, if there's a particularly fast, tricky moment in a song that you're trying to learn, Transcribe Plus can allow you to not only loop that section, but also to slow down the tempo to give you a better chance to play or transcribe out the notes. The pitch shift function also makes it easy to learn and practice songs in a different key, which is really useful because you can now practice along to the original record, even if your band are learning the song in a different key. You can try out Transcribe Plus for free, and when you're ready to unlock all of the premium features, it's just a one-off payment, not a subscription. So if you're interested, do check out Transcribe Plus by using the links down below in the description. Now, you may have noticed that Mixolydian Flat 6 is a slightly awkward name for a scale. Once you get beyond the most typical and widely used scales, we often don't have standardized names for these less common scales. So we instead take another well-known scale like the Mixolydian scale and name it after that, detailing what alteration needs to be made, in this case the Flat 6. But there is another name that's used for the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale, and that is Aeolian dominant. An Aeolian scale is a natural minor scale, and for a scale to be considered dominant, it means that we can build a dominant 7th chord on the tonic chord just using its notes. In the case of the Aeolian scale, that means altering the 3rd degree, making it into a major 3rd rather than a minor 3rd. So Aeolian dominant is saying we should have a Aeolian scale, a minor scale, but have a major 3rd, which results in a Mixolydian Flat 6 scale. It's just a different way of arriving at the same set of notes. Personally though, I'm not a big fan of the Aeolian dominant name. I find it a bit jarring, because it's ultimately asking us to think of a minor scale with a major third. And when the minor third is the defining characteristic of a minor scale, to think of a minor scale without the minor third is a little confusing to me. However, I do like how Aeolian Dominant points to the fact that this scale is a minor scale but with a major third, meaning that effectively the bottom half of the scale is a major scale and the top half is a minor scale, showing us where that bright yet dark sound is coming from. Another name that's sometimes used to describe the Mixolydian flat six or the Aeolian Dominant scale is the Hindu scale, because this scale is commonly used in Indian music. Of course, Indian musicians don't call it by the slightly crass name of the Hindu scale, they instead refer to it as Ragam Charyukishi. This ragam, or raga, has been used in both Indian film music and Indian classical music. Now, Mixolydian flat six is not only a scale, but it's also a mode. A mode is when we take the notes of another scale and we treat a different note in that scale as the root note, as the tonic. Mixolydian flat six is the fifth mode of the melodic minor scale. So if we take the C melodic minor scale, but now treat the fifth note of that scale, in this case G, as our root note, as our new tonic note, we now have a G Mixolydian flat six scale. What is quite satisfying about the relationship between Mixolydian flat six and its parent scale, the melodic minor, is that the melodic minor scale is like a reflection of the Mixolydian flat six, in the sense that the melodic minor scale is just like a major scale, but with the third lowered, and the Mixolydian flat six scale is just like a minor scale, but with the third raised. So both of these scales offer us a blend of the major and minor sound, but with Mixolydian flat six we get major on the bottom and minor on the top, and with the melodic minor we get it the other way round. We get the minor on the bottom and the major on the top. I'll leave you today with this piece of music I've composed purely in the G Mixolydian flat six scale.
Just to build a district, but to redefine urban living for generations to come. For New Morava, it's a chance to share our transformative vision and strengthen our ties with Korea's dynamic ecosystem of tech, design, and culture.
Naver has been a cornerstone from a development perspective for IT, cloud computing, and all tech-related aspects. To bring that into reality for New Morava means the collaboration on the robotics side, maybe on the AI side, and maybe even in the smart city solutions.
I'm really excited to exchange ideas with innovative partners, learn from Seoul's success stories, and identify concrete opportunities to localize global expertise within New Morava's unique content.
We are building the world's largest, heaviest structure known to man. Residents are going to be living within it, and people are going to be experiencing it at the same time.
眼神手對，不得超高飛上白燈即蘇死。
This video is sponsored by Incogni. A chromatic mediant is a chord that is either a third above or a third below the tonic chord, and also not in the key, i.e. it's chromatic. So, for example, if we were in the key of G minor and we used the chord E flat minor, that would be a chromatic mediant because E flat minor doesn't belong in the key of G minor. However, E flat is a third away from G. The Imperial March from Star Wars is largely built on this move from G minor to E flat minor. Chromatic mediants have a weird, unnerving sound because the chord is chromatic, i.e. not in the same key, but despite this, the relationship between the two chords still works because both chords share a consistent note between them, a common tone. The G minor and E flat minor chords here both feature the note B flat. So this common tone can allow the chords to still work together, still fit together, despite not belonging together diatonically. For the two chords to be in the same key, the E flat here would have to be an E flat major chord, not an E flat minor. And in fact, later in Darth Vader's Imperial March theme, we do get a momentary switch to the E flat major chord instead. This brief moment of the regular diatonic E flat chord, rather than the chromatic mediant E flat minor, almost hints at the fact that there is still a bit of good and brightness left in Darth Vader, hidden away behind the dark exterior. Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode uses a chromatic mediant chord, giving the song an eerie mood. This time it's a different chromatic mediant relationship to that we saw in Star Wars. The verse of Enjoy the Silence uses the minor version of the 3 chord, the chord E flat minor in the key of C minor. Words like violence break the silence, come crashing into my little world. Painful to me, pierce right through me. The C minor and E flat minor chords are a third away from each other. However, they are not found in the same key. To be in the same key, the E flat chord would have to be a major chord, not a minor chord. So why are these chords referred to as chromatic mediants? Where does that weird name come from? Well, the mediant, the regular mediant chord, is simply just the third chord of the key. So in the key of C major, for example, the mediant is E minor, the third chord of the key. Mediant ultimately means third. We also have a submediant chord, which is the chord that's not up a third from the root, but instead down a third, which effectively makes it the 6th chord of the key. In the key of C major, the submediant is A minor. These mediant and submediant chords are our regular diatonic mediant chords. So then, if we have a chord that is related by a third to the root, but not in the key, not diatonic, well, now we have a chromatic mediant. Beyond being a third away from the root, and also not in the same key, the third and final requirement for a chord to be considered a chromatic mediant is that
Do it.
Stop crying! Why did I have a baby in real life? When I could have just downloaded Mom Life Simulator?
Here are the predictions for Generation Beta. So Gen Beta is the brand new generation born in 2025 to 2039, and they're expected to be the most digitally connected yet least physically active generation of all time. They're intriguing because they may not understand legacy concepts like cash driving or books because of their reliance on digital payment, autonomous driving, and digital media respectively. They're also expected to be the most medicated generation by a long shot, surpassing Gen Alpha thanks to depression from screen time. Speaking of which, it's meant to be a whopping 12 hours per day, which is nearly 100% more than the current global average. The top names in Gen Beta are Nova, Aria, and Luna in that order for girls, and for boys it's Kai, Leo, and Ezra. Gen Beta will naturally be the most recorded generation in history, and therefore will have the least amount of nostalgia since they'll capture most of their memories digitally. Gen Beta is also expected to have the smallest brains since they'll easily refer to AI agents to help them remember general facts about things including phone numbers, locations, or even names. The oldest Gen Beta person right now is 7 months old, but it's going to be exciting to see what people emerge from this generation and for what reasons, though trends probably say it'll be YouTubers. Pretty cool. Here are the predictions for Generation Beta. So Gen Beta is the brand new generation born in 2025.
335 to 339.
Stick around to find out how you can learn even more about upper chord extensions using today's sponsor, Piano.
Generally speaking, I think the average player is fully familiar with major chords, minor chords, probably most of the 7 chords you know.
Seventh, dominant 7,
There are a bit of anxiety in
C7, major 7, minor 7, augmented 7, diminished 7.
Sometimes get a bit confusing about which notes we're actually meant to be adding into the chords, and that isn't helped by the fact that there are some conventions on how we start a chord here. So what we have here,
C dominant 9, C9,
a C7, C dominant 7, with
a major 9.
added on top. Of course, the ninth is literally the 9th degree of scale, 9 notes up from the root note of C in this case. So that is a C9 chord, what is actually referred to in its full name as C dominant 9. So in the same way that this chord, C7, is actually C dominant 7, if we're being accurate about it, this chord, C9, is C dominant 9. We can see a 9th chord, a dominant 9th chord, at work here in James Brown's Papa's Got a Brand New Band. As we can see from the James Brown song here, dominant 9 chords can be used as a sort of upgraded version of a dominant 7 chord. Anytime you're playing something with a sort of blues tonality where you're using a dominant chord on the tonic, rather than using 7, you could use a 9 to add that extra depth and dimension to the chord. For example, we can see that a lot throughout the song Play That Funky Music White Boy by Wild Cherry. Now what you might have noticed is, unlike when we make a 7th chord where we're taking a triad and then we add the 7th, with a 9th chord we don't just add the 9th on top, we don't take C and add 9. That's actually a different type of chord, literally called C add 9, because we have to use the word add to specify the fact that we're not stacking up to the 9th, because by default with what we call upper chord extensions, 9ths, 11ths, 13ths, we stack up, including previous degree, in this case the 7th, in the chord. So a C9 chord also includes the 7th. And that's true in all types of 9th chords, whether you're talking about major 9ths, minor 9ths, regular dominant 9th like this, we always stack up. Now let's move on to the next type of 9th chord, which is the major 9th. And what you'll notice is that the 9th, the top note, didn't change. Whether it's dominant 9 or major 9, the top note, the 9th, is the same note. It doesn't get affected. The major or dominant aspect of it is all to do with the 7th. In a major 9 chord, we're taking a major 7 chord, C major 7, and adding a 9. And in a C9 chord and a C dominant 9, we're adding the 9th on top of a C dominant 7. So that is one of the things that can be confusing about 9th chords, is even though the focus is kind of on the 9 in the name, the bit that's moving between the major 9 and the dominant 9, and as you'll see in the next one, the minor 9, isn't the 9 at all. The 9th degree is always, in this case at least, just staying where it is. We can hear the major 9 chord at work at the beginning of Peg by Steely Dan. Also look out for these 7 sharp 9 chords as well, which we will be talking about later in the video, the so-called Hendrix chord.
sharp 9 chords.
A good example of minor ninth chords is in Let's Stay Together by Al Green. We can also hear a minor ninth chord strummed on the acoustic guitar during the verse of Dogs by Pink Floyd. So I mentioned earlier about the add 9. So when we, rather than stacking up, including the 7th, we literally just add the 9th on top of whatever chord it is. So we might have, for example, C minor, add 9th. And for that type of chord, it's really simple to understand what's being asked of you, because it's literally spelled out C minor, and you add 9. Or the more common type of add 9 chord that you'll encounter, the major add 9. So C major, add 9, for example. And that's a really common chord on the guitar. A very famous example is Wonderwall by Oasis. A great example of both major add 9 and minor add 9 chords at work is in Every Breath You Take by The Police, where we're getting the 9th added in to this arpeggiated guitar part. So as you would have seen through some of the recent videos, I got the opportunity recently to film at the Piano Studio in Canada. Piano are a long-term sponsor of the channel. They really help make these videos possible. And Piano offer a fantastic online resource for learning how to play the piano. If all of this talk of 9th chords has got you interested in learning other upper chord extensions, like 11th chords, for example, then you might find Brett's 30-minute deep dive into 11th chords really useful.
Because it gives you your 7, 9, and 11, just to play a major triad, a whole tone down from the key you're in.
This is just one of hundreds of exclusive tutorials and lessons available on Piano, diving into every facet of playing piano. So if you're interested in that, if you want to check out Piano, then use the link down below in the description to get a free trial. Thanks very much. So in all of the main types of 9 chords, the dominant 9, the major 9, and the minor 9, and even the add 9, the 9th degree never changes. Between all of these chords, C9, C major 9, C minor 9, C add 9, the 9th is always that D right there. But there are some variations on 9th chords that we can make where we are changing what that 9th is. So for example, we could have a flat 9 chord, which is like an alteration on the normal chord. So for example, we might have C7 flat 9. So 9th would usually be D natural. We wind up instead with D flat because it's flat 9. Adding the flat 9 to a dominant chord adds even more tension to what was already a tense chord, making the resolution from that dominant chord all the more satisfying. For example, in For Once in My Life, made famous by Stevie Wonder, we get a D7 flat 9 chord here resolving to G minor 7.
For once in my life, I have someone who needs me.
This chord change would have worked perfectly well just with a normal D7 moving to G minor 7 rather than the flat 9, but the flat 9 adds even more payoff to that resolution, to that chord change. This is what the change would sound like if it was just a D7.
For once in my life, I have someone who needs me.
And here is what Stevie actually plays with the flat 9 included.
I have someone who needs me.
And just like how we can flatten the ninth, we could also sharpen the ninth. So for example, if I had an E7 chord, I could add not the regular ninth, which would be F sharp, but I could add the sharp 9. So I sharpen it again, takes me up to this G note. Technically what we would call F double sharp, because I was on F sharp, I sharpened an F sharp, so it's now F double sharp. But really it's a G natural thrown on top of an E7 chord. So now we actually have both, effectively, the major third and the minor third, although we're calling it a sharp 9, in the chord at once. And this is what we call a Hendrix chord, of course named after Jimi Hendrix. It's a very distinctive chord, very sort of dissonant sounding chord that, for example, he used in the opening of Purple Haze. Now, although we associate this chord with Hendrix, this chord was of course used well before Hendrix. For example, we can see a 7 sharp 9 chord here in Miles Davis's All Blues. And in fact, the use of this chord here in All Blues was what inspired Pink Floyd's Rick Wright to include the same chord in Floyd's classic track Breathe.
There's a certain chord which is... That is totally down to a chord I had heard on actually Miles Davis album. When we're doing Breathe, we got to G, and how do you get to E again? Well, again, normally you go... But I remember this chord, and I remember working it out at home, listening to the record, and I just thought...
They shot the major 7.
The Beatles were also fans of this dominant flat 9 chord, the Jimi Hendrix chord, using it in a variety of their songs, including Taxman, The Word, and Michelle. So that was the Hendrix chord, but here's another chord that's commonly named after a very famous usage of it, the James Bond chord, what is a minor major 9 chord. If you watched my video about the 7 types of 7 chord, then you'll know that a minor major 7 is a minor triad, but with the major 7 built on top. Well, a minor major 9 is the exact same chord, but we've now also added the 9th on top. So for example, we have E minor major 7, and then we add the 9th on top, the F sharp, and now it's an E minor major 9. So that's 9th chords. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any other great examples of...
And last but not least,
there's long chord G7 flat 9 sharp 11. A13 sus, and then A13 flat 9 sharp 11.
I love that there. That A13 sus going into the A13 flat 9 sharp 11. So good.
Sharp 13 chords.
This video is sponsored by Synchron Pianos by Vienna Symphonic Library. Most piano players and guitarists will know their major chords, their minor chords, sevenths, possibly diminished and augmented as well. But one category of chord that they may avoid learning, one that they may be intimidated by, is the upper chord extensions, which refers to ninths, 11ths, and 13ths, and all the variations thereof where we modify the notes in those chords. Upper chord extensions, though, offer such a rich sound, a rich quality to them, that you can't get with typical 3 or 4 note harmony. So today I want to get you into the world of upper chord extensions by addressing the 2 factors that I think make upper chord extensions intimidating to new players. The first factor is knowing what notes actually go into these chords. How do you actually voice these 5, 6, or 7 note chords on your instrument? And the second factor is knowing when to play them. How do you actually know when to play a G13 chord or an F sharp 11 chord? Where do they fit into typical chord progressions? So let's start by looking at that first factor, how to actually voice these chords. And to do this, we're going to use a little trick that we can call the slash chord trick. So for example, that is what I would call a G dominant 13 chord, or just G13 if you want to. But if we look at the notes I'm actually playing, I'm really playing an F major 7 in the right hand, and then G in the left hand. So we could call that F major 7 slash G, right? Because that's what a slash chord is. It's saying play that chord in the right hand and then play that left hand bass note underneath it. But how does this create a G13 chord? Well, let's lose that lower octave. If we look at it like this, we see that we're missing the 3rd and the 5th. But once we reintroduce them, we have that fully stacked G13 chord. Just like any other tertiary harmony, it's all about stacking thirds. And if we're looking at the white notes, all we have to do to think about thirds is play a note, skip a note, 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 and we get the fully stacked G13 chord. But when we have this fully stacked version, we hear it sounds pretty dense, right? So in practice, musicians will typically drop the 5th from the chord, and often as well the 3rd, which turns a big old stack of notes into something far more easy on the ears and easy to understand, because I don't have to now think G13, I can think F major 7 over G. And that can extend to when we are making modifications to the chord, alterations. So imagine we had this chord. Pretty cool chord, right? Especially if we resolve it back to C. That is a F minor major 7 over G, but it's actually a G13 flat 9. there's the flat 9. The ninth should normally be A, but I've lowered it down to A flat.
G13
So
flat 9.
every upper chord extension chord you could have, every 9th chord, 11th chord, 13th chord can be simplified down to a simple slash chord, which makes it so much easier to understand because all you have to do is think, I'm going to play that chord in the right hand and that note in the left hand. And I don't even need to be aware that I'm playing a 13 chord. I can just think slash chord. And you can extend that to guitar as well. The guitarist could play that chord and the bass player could play that. And between them, they've got that G13 flat 9 chord. So I can't go through every upper chord extension and its slash chord trick, but I'll put them on screen right now. And let's go through just another one example of how we can use slash chords to effectively cheat our way into playing upper chord extensions. So let's look at the dominant 9 chord. So C dominant 9 is the same as C7, a chord that I'm sure we're all familiar with, but we add the 9th degree. That would be the 8th degree, the octave 8th, right? So one note up from the octave is the 9th degree. So that is C7 with the 9th on top, which is a C9 chord, or what would the full name of that chord would be C dominant 9. So that's a C dominant 9 chord, and we could play it like this, that I'm playing it now, but a better way to think about it would be we have a E minor 7 flat 5, which is this chord, in the right hand, and the note C in the left hand. The thing is, although you could play a C dominant 9 chord just about with one hand, these upper chord extensions, by definition, go beyond the octave. That's why they're called upper chord extensions, because they're going up beyond the octave, the 9, the 11, the 13. So generally, we're not going to be able to play it with one hand.
Here's how to play G13 flat 9 sharp 11. Beautiful. In our left hand, we're just going to play 2 notes, not even a triad. We're going to play the 3rd and the 7th of a G7 chord. So if you take a look at that chord scale chart again, G7, you've got B as the 3rd and F as the 7. And then in the other hand, in the right hand, we're going to play a D flat minor chord, just a basic 3-note triad. Wow, that is something. That is a really juicy chord. I love that sound. Real dissonant, but when you resolve it to the C major 9 chord, it sounds great. So you have that nice contrast between dissonance and consonance. Here's how to play G13 flat.
Music theory concepts like adding 9s,
This is how you play the F sharp 13 chord on guitar. Use your index finger to bar the 2nd fret. Place your middle finger on the 3rd fret with the 3rd string. Place your ring finger on the 4th fret with the 5th string. Place your pinky finger on the 4th fret with the 1st string. Strum all strings.
With this secret formula, you can play any dominant 13 chord without having to memorize them. With the left hand, we play the root, and with the right hand, from the flat 7, we play the major 7 chord with the flat 5, and we get our dominant 13. Let's say...
Want to build your dream car? Construction software lets you bring your own ideas to life in a fun and simple...
93%. Hmm. I think AP4 doesn't go above 94%. It's stuck on 9.3. I think the capacity already dropped. So yeah. It's supposed to be 18 members left. Now it's stuck there. Stuck there. For the 93%. Stuck for 93%. We're supposed to 19 members until full. Now it's stuck at 93. Yeah, by going is negative mams. And my thing is maybe a charger or the I may think that charger that loses power on the charge, so it can't go to 99% as it wish to. Well, that is counting as losing a bit of power but from the charge, or say charger weak, please switch to a better charging cable to continue. It is not good. My device can't charge.
How do you say the name of my country in your language? How do you say the name of my country in your language? I say Italia. I call you Italy. Italy, Italia, Italy, Italia, Italian, Italia. Oh, ask me. I wasn't expecting this. The most diverse and different languages agreed to call me the same way. Greece, Russia. Your languages are also very different. What about you? Italia, Italia, trallallero, trallala. This is incredible. My name is the most international.
It was international.
You have participated yet in Germany.
Anyways,
The other version, Italia.
Italia.
A relief for the Italian people.
Feel.
A relief for all our ears, to be honest. Oh, this is magnificent. So I think Italy is the most international word then. Let's celebrate.
Angry opponent. Those who George. Diocci.
Guys, how do you call me in your languages? I call you very similar to yourself. I say España, Español, who is España, España, Hispania, Hispania, Español, España, España, España. Wow.
España. Strach.
And even Hungarian uses the same Hispania rule. I agree. This is unprecedented in Spain. You see, US, this is how a legit international world is built. With thousands of years of tradition, not with series and plans. You son of a Roman. Continue, please. I think my name is going to be a super international word. Spain, 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 Spain.
Germany. Who's me? And also Czechia.
而家生意非常之差，再咁落去好有機會執笠。我有幾個方案想聽聽大家嘅意見。第一個選擇就係揾一啲 international 嘅商業股。
今鋪終於都唔係水浸，都係黃雨啦。事關一到朝早9:10，天文台就即刻黑俾你睇。原來呢一日朝早，大暴雨都集中喺香港嘅東南面。其中港島東區、南區同埋離島區嘅南丫島降雨量都超過每小時100毫米，簡直係雙倍紅雨咁款啊！就喺正重災區嘅港鐵鰂魚涌站，個車站出入口真係變成涌啊！班打工仔企晒喺度等，好無奈啊！不過喺柴灣道嘅打工仔有啲都幾勇㗎，直情踩上鐵欄邊嚟到避開水浸。唔通香港人真係咁中意返工？落到咁大雨，喺山坡下嘅柴灣慈幼學校，好自然有上演期間限定瀑布啊！由柏架山上邊流落嚟大量黃泥水，形成小型嘅尼亞加拉，甚至衝埋去到學校嘅球場，變咗水塘咁。相信停雨之後都有排清理啊！瀑布又點止一個啊！上次世紀暴雨已經出晒名嘅筲箕灣耀興道近耀東村對開嘅山坡都有啊，因為啲水多到排唔切，就喺護土牆嘅渠口度流落嚟，下邊嘅行人路同馬路都浸晒啊！土力署話佢哋嘅工程師朝早嚟到目測過，認為嗰度冇即時冧山泥嘅風險，下午亦都派無人機偵測，評估一帶嘅山坡都冇明顯異樣。乜你以為上咗架巴士就唔使濕身咩？呢一架石澳巴士啲水浸到入車廂，而喺村入邊多處嘅行人路仲變成激流添。
中雨，啲水上晒橋啊！嗰啲垃圾阻住啲橋嗰個去水啊，所以谷得好緊要啊！橋面下游啲個水啊，水位好低嘅，喺橋上邊咧就上晒水，太阻水，好多垃圾喺橋上面阻水。
而上次喺世紀暴雨已經浸得好勁㗎，柴灣環翠村商場停車場今次浸過， 原因係呢一度冇內置嘅大型電動水泵，每次水浸都係靠條渠嚟到去水，而商場喺水浸之後2個鐘先至擺水閘，但個水閘只係去到膝頭哥咁高，根本就唔夠高去到講。有車主話呢一日朝早冇收到停車場通知，係自己落樓經過呢一度先發現水浸。檢查後估計自己部愛妻應該兇多吉少啦。其實天文台今次反應已經算快㗎啦，朝頭早7點幾就預告有局部大雨，短短1個鐘，個暴雨警告仲由黃升到黑。
今次嘅暴雨咧係有2個特點㗎，第一咧係發展咧相當之迅速，大家可以見到咧喺8、9點咧，雷達圖像顯示咧暴雨咧係迅速咁樣發展㗎，但係影響嘅地區咧係比較集中。主要咧係集中影響香港東南邊嘅地區，例如市區、將軍澳甚至南丫島呢啲地區。相反咧，新界西北部嘅雨勢咧係比較細㗎。
不過慘在唔少打工仔返咗工，或者返到半路先知掛咗黑雨啦。佢哋就質疑司長個應對極端天氣督導委員會，今次反而又冇超前部署喎。
啲大雨咧係有一定嘅隨機性，同埋咧發展迅速。喺現今嘅科技之下咧，要提前好多咧去預測邊一段時間同埋邊啲地區咧係受到暴雨影響咧，仍然有一定嘅限制㗎。
而商台引述個消息人士係咁講㗎。據了解，由於黑雨嚟得較突然，因此政府嘅應對極端天氣督導委員會今朝並冇開會。
Yo, you have to see this. What game is that? It's Kaz Games. 100 games in one app. I don't believe it. What kind of games? Minecraft, FNAF, Huggy Wuggy, Sonic, Mario, Among Us. All of them. No way. You can actually play Huggy and Sonic in the same app. Yeah, and it's totally free. That's insane. Give me the link. Just search Kaz Games on Google Play. Download it.
安㗎啦。咁睇睇呢一度嘅的士站個情況如何啦嚇。好啦，咁呢一度咧係排滿晒嘅嚇。好啦，咁所以咧就我本身以為呢一度咧，甚至乎我有幻想過會出現人等車咧，因為會啲車出晒九龍咧，馬鞍山嗰啲的士，結果唔係喎。而家我睇到成個馬鞍山區咧，暫時個情況都係供應過度啊 ，over supply 啊，其實係，所以我試下即係呢個 General 馬鞍山核心區域，我試下遠離少少先，去翻烏溪沙嗰邊啦。之後咧就接到一啲有加成嘅訂單喎，反而嚇，咁就喺烏溪沙呢一邊啦嚇。好啦，咁呢一個客咧就喺呢個迎海，咁由迎海咧就去呢個耀安村嘅。不過佢要去嘅耀安村咧就唔係一般嗰個耀安村巴士總站個位嘅，喺後邊嗰度嘅嚇。咁就喺呢一個位轉咗啦。然之後咧，去到最盡頭迴旋處調翻頭嗰個巴士站位嘅耀安村啦嚇。好啦，咁而家就繼續沿住條路一路咁樣去直行到尾嘅迴旋處啦。好，咁我相信呢啲期嘅話，應該就我對觀眾嚟講會比較有趣啲啦，係咪啊？因為平時就多數啦，一間嘅的士絕大部分都係喺九龍同港島嗰邊逗留啦，咁今集有唔少時間咧，可以喺新界啊、喺荃灣、沙田啊、馬鞍山帶逗留都係唔錯啦。好啦，咁就呢個時候係接到個客咧，就係呢個利安嘅嚇。咁而家咧，我哋喺前邊咧就轉右咧就可以抵達利安噶啦嚇。好，轉入嚟利安之後咧，發覺的士站咧係有一個客等緊車啦，另外就係咯清空晒，一架車都冇咁啊。我就接咗呢個客咧，不過咧呢個客咧就係又係一個綠的期嚟嘅喎嚇。咁其實頭先全部期即係由我入到嚟沙田開始接嘅所有期咧，都係綠的都做得係啦。咁就呢個期啦，利安村去大學站啦，咁綠的都做得嘅，咁呢個期我都有加成嘅嚇。好啦，咁我同時間咧，我想睇下今日咧有冇機會可以攞到 Uber 嗰個嘅獎金啦嚇。咁今日咧就係做滿3支旗有40蚊，做咗4支旗有60蚊獎金啦。睇下攞唔攞到啦嚇。係啦，但係我又唔會夾硬接佢啲旗嘅。如果佢啲旗係麻麻地嘅，唔係咁啱 feel 嘅嚇，我都未必做嚇。好啦，咁就而家咧呢度就轉翻左就可以落翻去大學站啦嚇。咁大學站啊一如既往噶啦，都係好塞車嘅呢度嚇。好，咁就我見到哇，勁多的士、勁多巴士、勁多私家車，但係得條咁窄嘅路，咁啊好明顯就會好塞車咯嚇。好啦。呢一度嘅紅的站咧，我見到佢有 keep 住流動嘅，不過我就咧接到下一個客啊，都已經喺 Uber 上面，就喺後邊嗰個酒店嘅啫啊。咁幾好，啲期都幾近啊，即係雖然啲期又唔算太長啦，不過做完上一支期去接下一支期又係綠的期，個時間又好快啦嚇。好啦，咁而家咧就沙田海悅酒店咧就上客咧喺呢個石門安綠里嘅嚇。嘅嚇，好啦，咁咧而家就出發去呢個石門啦。好，
She's a beast. I call her karma. She eats your heart out like Jeffrey Dahmer. Be careful, try not to lead her on. Shorty heart is on steroids cause her love is so strong. You may fall in love when you meet her. If you get the chance, you better keep her. She's sweet as pie, but if you break her heart, she turns cold as a freezer. That fairy tale ending would a knight in shiny armor. She can be my sleeping beauty. I'm gon' put her in a coma. Damn, I think I love her. Shot it so bad, I sprung and I don't care. She wrapped me like a roller coaster, turned the bedroom into a fair. Her love is like a drug. I was trying to hit it and quit it, but lil' mama so dope, I messed around and got addicted.
So you wanna play with magic? Boy, you should know what you said you can call me Alex, baby. Welcome to my life. But don't you worry, don't worry, girl. No, I'm not sure if I'm in.
What will you do now? I don't know what to.
First 5 countries are invited to my birthday.
Three math facts I bet you didn't know. 3x plus 1 might just be the most silent but deadly problem. To explain, first grab any number and if it's odd, multiply it by 3 and add 1. If it's even, divide it by 2. No matter what number you chose, big or small, it'll always lead to 1. Now this might seem a little bit counterintuitive at first, since multiplying a number by 3 and adding 1 should lead you to a much bigger number, until you realize that every time you do this, it gets you an even number. Okay, cool. But wait, there's more. When you end up with 1, 1 is still an odd number, so we apply 3x plus 1 to it to get 4, which is even. So we divide it by 2 to get 2, which is also even, so we divide it by 2 again to get, wait, 1? But what about the paths each number goes through to get to 1? Well, we actually don't know, because this pattern is complete randomness, but it's worked with every big number we've tried. So this leads to one more question. Do insanely big numbers like a googolplex, which is so massive that our universe can't even display it, actually work for this 3x plus 1 problem? Subscribe for more. 3 math facts I bet you.
It's a pizza time! 43 degrees.
Perfectly.
Home. How's that?
Bruh, you know.
That wasn't that bad.
Be better.
97.65.
24, come on.
That was worse. You know what? All this pizza is like making me hungry. 38. Alright.
This is a margarita pizza.
3 degrees.
Right there.
What?
99%. 160 degrees. I am so close.
That's where the tornado.
Yeah! So, I got rank 1 last time, but it wasn't a perfect score. Let's try and get that a perfect score.
I don't know if that's possible. But rank 5.
It's not bad. Alright, my eyes are glued to the screen.
See if we can do it. Let's see if we can do it.
Analyzing.
So 161 degrees of foot raise, 99.75.
香港好多工作都要同時間競賽，外賣員就係其中一種啦。有外賣員就將同食店爭執嘅片擺上網公審，各位陪審員一齊評理啊！好唔好撳出餐啊？放低啊！未整好冇撳出餐啊！你我啊！咁係咪你嘅錯啊？你放低冇做咩唔認啊？仲喺度嗌？攞啦！唔攞咯！雖然條片唔長啊，不過大家都已經知道呢個係一個圍繞住外賣員同埋餐廳店主嘅故事。事發地點位於新蒲崗一間米線鋪，外賣員批評店家未整好就撳出餐。而根據片段，店家係一句解釋都冇就已經發爛，叫外賣員唔好拎外賣。片段引起網民熱議，大多批評店主態度離譜，認為佢唔尊重外賣員，睇唔起人，更加將佢同荃灣享和街車房排骨仔相提並論啊！你好似好唔滿意咁喎，咁我呢個6點鐘俾你價，呢個本身我哋價你唔滿意嘅，個音咪蝕咗咪算咯。你唔好影啊！我冇影你乜嘢我你而家騷擾到我揸車，我就開唔到車啦，我就揾人過嚟攞車。我真係刪咗機，就咪就蝕咗機啦。你好似好唔滿意咁，我同你講多。
本港網絡瘋傳一段影片，指九巴74X 上有阿叔用手機大聲睇影片，影響司機駕駛。司機於是將巴士停喺高速公路一旁，行過去鬧爆個阿叔。
我投訴啊！歡迎投訴啊！你如果投訴我而家我唔開車啦，我索性唔開車啦。你投訴我先唔開車啦。你好似好唔滿意我咁。梗係唔滿意啦，得啦。點解唔過嚟咁樣放心？我同你講完，你好似好唔滿意咁。
影片引嚟網民熱議，唔少網民讚司機做得好好，又質疑點解拍片者怪責司機情緒激動。拍片者回覆強調並非怪責司機，但係指見到個司機情緒高漲去揸車，即使你知道佢做嘅嘢係啱，都會感到不安。
呢條友食完嘢啊，劈喺度，你唔好打我啊！你唔好喐手啊！
呢位男士嘅缺德行為已經被影低晒㗎啦，喐手只會輸更多嘅啫。
食完啲嘢劈喺度，全程喺度隔離聽抖音，我都已經唔出聲話你㗎啦。哎呀，你唔好挨落我度啊！我影住你啊！我影住你啊！我影住你咯！我怕咩影住你啫？我唔怕影住你啊！唔好抌啊嘛！食得
片段去到呢度就完，幫大家補充多啲細節啦。據片主話，事發嘅時候，佢搭緊來往石門村同機場嘅 A41巴士，片中位男士喺上層食完外賣之後，就將外賣攝喺車頭條柱，然後淨係顧住睇抖音。眼見對方準備落車，但係就冇執嘢嘅動作，片主睇唔過眼，要求佢執好。然後位男士居然唔認賬，片主話自己睇住佢喺港珠澳上車，然後開盒酸奶食。隨後位男士只係扮嘢喐咗一下，將垃圾擺喺凳底就算。於是片主就拎出手機開始呢段公審。片中可以留意到呢位男士受多方指責之下，並冇立即執翻啲垃圾，反而由上層將垃圾踢到去樓梯，再踢到去下層，然後先至執翻佢離開車廂。網民睇完片之後都大讚片主係正義女同埋勇敢，又話如果遇到同樣情況都會主動去幫片主。搭車啊，梗係要俾錢啦！偏偏網上面不時有關於搭港鐵逃票嘅討論，有網民更加直擊一家大細疑似逃票嘅過程。呢位媽媽用手機二維碼拍卡之後，就推住兩個小朋友一齊出閘，之後冇其他拍卡動作。尾隨嘅疑似爸爸亦都用手機二維碼拍卡出閘，會合之後一齊離開。成個懷疑逃票嘅過程俾片主全程影低，直斥情況係超級無敵荒謬。片段喺網上面曝光之後，引起唔少網民討論。有人批評呢個逃票嘅行為係無恥，要俾教訓佢先得。亦都有人指出3歲以下嘅小朋友可以免費搭港鐵，所以有冇逃票關鍵就在於片入面嘅小朋友嘅年齡啦。根據港鐵資料，3歲以下小童可以免費搭車，凡身高95厘米或以上。若果未能夠提供年齡證明嘅乘客，會被視作3歲或以上者，而逃票係可以罰款1000蚊。嘅乘客會被視作3歲或以上者，小童可以免費搭車，凡身高95厘米或以上。若果未能夠提供年齡證明嘅乘客，會被視作3歲或以上者，而逃票係可以罰款1000蚊。
到底係啲咩事令到大媽話要去派出所？星期二喺深圳鐵路4號線嘅車廂入面，一名長者帶住小朋友搭車，上咗車之後就冇人讓座俾佢哋，長者就將小朋友塞到去隔離一個女乘客嘅身上面，更加大鬧對方係畜生，雙方因為咁樣而發生爭執。而同車嘅乘客都對長者嘅行為感到憤怒，紛紛替女子打抱不平。
你上來啊，啥也不講，你上來啥也不講，還往人家一撞，你這禮貌嗎？
亦都有乘客做和事佬，提醒長者小朋友仲喺度，唔好喺小朋友面前嘈，但係長者都冇停落嚟嘅意欲。喺列車到達深圳北站之後，雙方都落車，喺月台已經有工作人員等緊，但係該名長者仍然追擊緊女乘客，工作人員亦都上前勸阻。深圳地鐵人員表示，目前警方已經介入處理事件，後續可以關注通報。深圳北站公交派出所亦都話，事情而家依程序處理緊。
外遊最希望嘅就係平平安安。有港男於網上表示，喺7月21日乘搭國泰航空 CX504航班，從香港飛往日本成田國際機場。上機之後，見到飛機有緊急出口漏水，國泰安排工程師上機檢查咗半個鐘頭，起飛時間都被迫延誤，但最後竟然繼續任由出口漏水，話好安全，然後繼續原機飛往日本。國泰航空回覆我哋查詢嘅時候表示，航機喺香港國際機場出發之前，曾經由工程人員按照標準飛機維修程序檢查其中2道機門，並確認可安全運作。國泰航空強調，顧客同埋機組人員嘅安全係國泰嘅首要考慮，而有關嘅航機已於同日下晝安全抵達成田機場。
任何地方都有機會出現小偷，呢位小偷就揀咗喺健身室度落手，然後俾人捉到。雖然就冇人對佢動粗，但係佢受到嘅懲罰，相信佢自己都冇想象過係咁重啊！
做 gym 做到咁辛苦，為咩啊？原來係俾人罰嘅。事源喺孟加拉有間健身中心，早前俾人爆竊，老闆睇返閉路電視，鎖定小偷係一個後生仔。 事後有健身中心嘅會員喺當地市場發現小偷嘅蹤影，成班會員將佢帶返鋪頭入面。老闆當時唔喺現場，但就叫啲顧客唔好傷害對方。佢哋於是就地取材懲罰呢個男人，進行咗一系列嘅地獄式訓練。位小偷仲一度痛哭跪地求饒。影片喺網上瘋傳，引起網民兩極嘅討論。有人認為呢一種懲罰有創意啊，但就有留言覺得老闆應該要報警，從正常途徑去懲治對方，而唔係用私刑。
I say España, Español, España, España, Hispania, Hispania, Español, España, España, España. Wow, that is amazing. We have nation. SpongeBob, 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 SpongeBob. Wow, US. Managed to put half the planet together. Glad you like it, Mr. Kingdom. This is probably the most diverse group of nations we've ever had agreeing on a word. You see the idea there? Series and brands usually don't translate and use the original English name. We're the most international language. Spain. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are also a very important language. As important as English, if not more. I'm probably going to be the most spoken language in the USA in not very long. De aquí anglicismos de entrada los evitamos. Spain, half the planet is using the original name SpongeBob. Mira ya.
虽然你一击就打的金肉人
Elephant.
虽然你一击就打的金肉人跪地求饶，就连容嬷嬷的绣花针你也丝毫不放在眼里。但是接下来这位大名鼎鼎的士绅，你可千万不要小瞧他，看他会召唤出分身不断攻击，每打一下就是15亿的伤害。而你就算使出了祖传绝学无敌风雷，也依然不是他的对手。不过不用慌，接下来我就告诉你一个快速升级的小技巧。我们只需连续点击这里，就能获得丰厚的奖励。有了金币后，我们就可以提升等级，这样再去挑战食神，很轻松就能击败你。最后，如果你们还有打算，记得告诉我哦。虽然你一击就打的金肉人跪地求饶，就连容嬷嬷的绣花针你也丝毫不放在眼里。但是接下来这位大名鼎鼎的食神，你可千万不要小瞧他，看他会召唤出分身不断攻击，每打一下就是15亿的伤害。而你就算使出了祖传绝学无敌风雷，也依然不是他的对手。不过不用慌，接下来我就告诉你一个快速升级的小技巧。我们只需连续点击这里，就获得丰厚的奖励。有了金币后，就可以提升等级，这样再挑战食神，很轻松就能击败你。最后如虽然你一击就打的金肉人跪地求饶，就连容嬷嬷的绣花针你也丝毫不放在眼里。但是接下来这位大名鼎鼎的食神，你可千万不要小瞧他，看他会召唤出分身不断攻击，每打一下就是15亿的伤害。而你就算使出了祖传绝学无敌风雷，也依然。
give it a straight to a 7. So it can go beyond my 3.